Imagine you've decided to paint your living room. You've already pictured how it will look. Fresh walls, new color, furniture back in place before Monday morning. You stop by the hardware store. Paint, brushes, rollers, drop cloths, tape. Everything fits inside one shopping cart. You smile. This should only take the weekend. Saturday morning begins exactly as planned. You move the furniture, cover the floor, open the first can of paint. The room already feels different. Then something happens. The old paint needs another coat. One wall takes longer than expected. You realize you forgot more supplies. The trim needs attention too. Sunday afternoon arrives. The room isn't finished. Neither is the cleanup. Monday comes, and one corner still isn't done. A project you confidently believed would take 2 days has quietly become 2 weekends. The strange part isn't that the estimate was wrong. It's how certain you felt when you made it. Because the human mind has an extraordinary habit. Whenever we imagine our own future, we quietly believe this time everything will go according to plan. Psychologists call this the planning fallacy. Almost no one plans to underestimate time. We don't begin a project expecting delays or interruptions or unexpected problems. We imagine ourselves working steadily, making progress, finishing roughly when we expected. Whether we're painting a room, writing a report, planning a vacation, starting a business, or renovating a home, our first estimate usually feels reasonable. Sometimes it even feels conservative. And yet, our lives are filled with projects that quietly expanded. A weekend became a month became a year became several. The remarkable part isn't that surprises happen. Life has always contained uncertainty. The remarkable part is that even after living through countless delays, we remain surprisingly confident that the next project will unfold differently. Experience should make us better forecasters. Instead, it often makes us better storytellers. We remember why the last project ran long, but we quietly believe those reasons won't apply this time. So why do intelligent, experienced people continue making the same optimistic predictions again and again? In the 1970s, psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky began studying how people think about uncertainty. Again and again, they discovered something surprising. When people estimated their own future, they consistently predicted better outcomes than experience would justify. Students believed their assignments would be finished earlier than they actually were. Writers expected their manuscripts to take less time than history suggested. Construction projects, business plans, government programs, even experts with years of experience often underestimated how long their own work would really take. This wasn't carelessness or laziness or wishful thinking. It reflected something much deeper. When we imagine the future, our attention naturally settles on the plan itself, the steps we hope to take, the progress we expect to make, the version of events where everything works more or less as intended. And without realizing it, we begin planning for the future we hope will happen, instead of the future that usually does. Imagine someone asks how long it will take to write a book. You don't begin by remembering every book that has ever taken years. Instead, your mind begins writing this one. You picture quiet mornings, steady progress, one chapter leading naturally to the next. You imagine the work itself, not the interruptions. This is what psychologists call the inside view. When we estimate the future, we focus on our plan, our intentions, our abilities, our motivation, the specific story we hope will unfold. And there is nothing irrational about that. Planning requires imagination. Without it, nothing meaningful would ever begin. But imagination has a blind spot. It naturally follows the smoothest path, the version where meetings aren't canceled, traffic isn't unusually heavy, the weather cooperates, the computer doesn't crash, nobody gets sick. Nothing unexpected demands our attention. Life almost never unfolds that cleanly. Not because our plans are poor, but because the future contains countless variables our imagination never thinks to include. Now imagine someone asks a different question. Instead of asking, "What is my plan?" they ask, "How long have projects like this usually taken?" Something changes. You stop imagining your future and begin observing reality. Perhaps the last 5 home renovations all took twice as long as expected. Perhaps every report your department completed finished later than its original deadline. Perhaps every time you've moved, packed, or remodeled, unexpected complications appeared. This is called the outside view. Instead of trusting the story we are telling ourselves, we look at what usually happens to people doing the same kind of work. It feels less personal, less exciting, sometimes less optimistic, but it is often far more accurate. Imagine 2 friends planning the same kitchen renovation. The first says, "I've thought it through. We'll work every evening. We already know what we're doing. It should only take 3 weeks." The second says, "Maybe, but every kitchen renovation I know has taken closer to 2 months." Neither friend works harder. Neither friend cares more. The difference isn't motivation. It's perspective. One person is planning from the inside. The other is learning from history. The planning fallacy doesn't happen because we lack confidence. It happens because we quietly believe our future will somehow be different from everyone else's. And sometimes it will be. But far more often, the future looks remarkably similar to the past. The planning fallacy doesn't mean we should stop making plans. Without plans, nothing important would ever begin. No family would build a home. No artist would begin a painting. No entrepreneur would start a company. No student would pursue a difficult dream. Optimism isn't the enemy. In many ways, it's one of the reasons human beings attempt extraordinary things. The problem begins when optimism replaces observation, when we assume our determination alone can predict the future. A thoughtful plan doesn't ask, "What do I hope will happen?" It also asks, "What usually happens?" That second question doesn't weaken hope. It strengthens preparation. Perhaps the project really will finish ahead of schedule. Perhaps everything will go smoothly. But if it doesn't, your confidence doesn't have to collapse, because your expectations already made room for reality. The wisest planners are rarely the people who expect the fewest problems. They're the people who quietly expect that life itself will participate in every plan. Think about the biggest projects of your life. A marriage, raising children, learning a profession, building a business, recovering after loss. Almost none unfolded exactly as you imagined. And yet, many of the moments that shaped you most were never part of the original plan. The unexpected teacher, the delayed opportunity, the difficult season that quietly changed who you became. If someone had shown you the entire journey before you began, you might never have started. Perhaps the purpose of planning isn't to predict the future perfectly. Perhaps it's simply to begin moving with intention. Then, when life inevitably rewrites part of the story, we adapt. Not because our original plan failed, but because the future has always been larger than our imagination. The next time you find yourself saying, "This should only take," pause for just a moment. Ask yourself whether you're imagining your plan or remembering your experience. There is wisdom in believing good things are possible. There is equal wisdom in remembering that worthwhile things often take longer than we expect. The planning fallacy isn't a flaw that needs to be eliminated. It's a reminder that confidence and certainty are not the same thing. We cannot see every obstacle. We cannot predict every interruption. We cannot know every turn the future will take. But we can begin with open eyes. We can leave room for reality. And we can keep moving when the timeline changes. Because the measure of a meaningful life isn't how accurately we predicted the future. It's whether we continued building it when the future looked different than we imagined. Sometimes the greatest progress doesn't come from finishing ahead of schedule. It comes from refusing to stop when the schedule falls behind.